Thank you for listening to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast, available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Stitcher. Also, please follow Matt's Movie Reviews on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit, Instagram, and MeWe. And of course, be sure to visit mattsmoviereviews.net for the latest reviews, top 10 lists, and more. Now, on to the show.
Who's going to be the prettiest at the ball? You are. Yeah, you are.
357 miles outside of Philadelphia, 29 degrees Fahrenheit, and one car in the lot. Ours.
Back when we opened in 87, this was quite the hideaway.
I don't want to freak you guys out. This place is safe. They're just stories.
And do people still go missing?
The hotel, it does something to people. It changes them. Pushes them to their most vulnerable.
We're here tonight to see if we can find anything that speaks to our father's disappearance.
And perhaps find some form of closure for the tragedy that has haunted the Moss family for decades. You can't escape the darkness. The shadows will follow you. What you saw in the pool, on your television, is nothing compared to what you'll see in the coming hours. Only they won't feel like hours.
I'm so sorry I brought you here, sir. I'm so sorry.
They'll feel like years.
I really did want you to have a memorable stay for your final night.
Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 382. Out now across the US on video on demand and digital is Night at the Eagle Inn, a supernatural horror thriller that stars Amelia, Dudley, and Taylor Turner as fraternal twins who spent a night at a remote hotel that their father disappeared from the night they were born. A gripping and entertaining haunted house horror movie with terrific performances and twist-filled story. Night at the Eagle Inn is the latest film from prolific filmmaker Erik Bloomquist, who directed and co-wrote the movie. And joining me now on the podcast is Erik himself. Erik, thank you so very much for your time today.
Hey, Matt. Happy to be here.
So you've been a busy boy this year. I mean, you've got released 3 films, or at least have 3 films ready to be released. And, you know, you've been very consistent in your filmmaking, you know, over the last, since 2015, really. You've released shorts. You had the Copperstone Corridor series. You had a series of films now. I mean, but 3 films in the 1 year, is this just a thing of just having more time on your hands than usual with the pandemic and just trying to keep yourself busy during that time?
Yeah, we hit this moment 6 months in where we just kind of wanted to take the bull by the horns and be as creative as possible on our own terms. So there was a time during the pandemic where we were doing a feature every 2 months for almost a year. We did like 5 features over a year.
So with this film in particular, Night at the Eagle Inn, you co-wrote it with your brother Carson, and he's done a bunch of films with you beforehand.
Yeah.
Where do you get the idea for this film? Do you guys kind of like have a list of like different movie possibilities that you kind of have on the side, and like maybe some draft reviews, etc.? Then like when the opportunity like the last year has arrived, you can kind of go back to that, and then you can look at these kind of ideas you might have in the drawing board. Or is this something that came out kind of more kind of like a fresh idea between you two?
This one came about because we had shot another movie in the same location 2 months prior to this, and when we were doing that, we toured this location, and as a possibility for the romantic dramedy, and we're like, I don't think it quite fits this, but it feels like another movie. So let's just do another movie. So as soon as we got back from that movie, we started writing this one. And we wrote it around the location and what we had access to, and, you know, stuff that became kind of central iconography, like the televisions and the halls and all that stuff, and did it in a way where we could keep it very contained, but also have some kind of scope. So this was a new idea that was just sort of inspired by a location.
The location itself, I mean, the hotel, I mean, it's, when it comes to anything regarding a haunted hotel or haunted house movie, location is so essential because the setting itself becomes a character in a movie. In regards to this movie, where is the hotel itself? Is this actual like a living, breathing kind of thing, or is it something that was kind of like abandoned and then you could kind of have time to have fun with it?
No, it's recently defunct, so it's very real. It's in Plymouth, Vermont, and we liked it because we were able to do a contained, trapped in a place movie without it feeling decrepit and abandoned. Like, it still feels very active, dated, a lot of character, but active, or potentially active, and that was important to us too, because I think that's kind of a harder thing to do, at the indie level at least.
Is it as cold as it looked on screen? I mean, one thing about a lot of the characters talk about is just how cold it is all the time. You could kind of feel that winter chill. Is that something that was really going on there?
It was colder. It was colder. It was there's a scene in the bar with Bo and Taylor, who played Dean and Spencer, and the thermostat was broken in that room. Luckily, we had heat in the main bedroom, but in that room, it was like, in the bar area, it was like 39 degrees, and their Bo's short sleeved jumpsuit, and between takes, everyone's like swearing and shaking and shivering. I should say shivering. Like, we were okay, but we were shivering, like we were in the trenches together. And luckily, we figured out that the sauna in the pool area still worked, so we were running back and forth to the sauna between takes, and saying the whole time that it would end up being a good memory, and it is a good memory that I'm sharing now. But yeah, it was cold in certain parts for sure.
Does that affect your equipment in any way?
We were luckily okay. I know sometimes it does on certain things, but we were okay, thankfully.
Let's talk casting here. So you have Amelia, Dudley, and Taylor Turner. They're playing Sarah and Spencer Moss, these fraternal twins who are central to the story. You've worked with them before. They were both in the Cobblestone series. What's interesting about this film is that their look is so expressive. I mean, number one, you have a change of hair color, which is funny. They kind of like switched hair colors. I mean, in this one, Taylor's got blonde. It usually has black hair. Amelia is usually blonde. She's got a black hair in this one. But the thing that really stuck out for me is the eyes. Their eyes are really expressive in this one. Like a really kind of like a bug-eyed kind of look. Is that something that that kind of look when it comes to characters? Is that something you work with your actors? Is that an idea? Is there something to do maybe with sleep deprivation, et cetera, of these characters that have that kind of look? How does that all kind of come about?
I mean, it definitely feeds into these characters, but the eyes was kind of the unifying thing that made me first think to cast them as twins, I guess 6 years ago now on our TV show. And, they're very different heights and different hair colors, but they both came in and they had these eyes and they had a sensibility to like be resonant with this kind of material. And I think that at that moment I was like, it makes sense. They're twins. And and it plays great. It played great in Cobblestone. It plays great here. And we wanted to kind of do the inverse of what we did in Cobblestone, and a little bit more expressive than they were there. And they switched the hair colors, partially for fun, partially because it suited the characters. But that was the thing that brought them together, was the eyes. And they actually, for sport, they would say this if they were here, they can convince people at bars that they are in fact real twins, and it's something that they have done for fun before.
I mean, it almost convinced me. I had to just do a little bit of research to see if there wasn't any type of relation between the two, because there is a very distinct look with them too.
There is, and I mean, I very much to the movie's benefit, and I think that they're very much individuals, but there's a great rapport between them, and that's something that I like with all the people that I work with in front of and behind the camera, is to have that kind of intangible bond and symbiosis that can just sort of lift things off the page in special ways.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by 80s Tees. 80s Tees is an online retailer of licensed t-shirts and pop culture gear from your favorite movies, TV shows, cartoons, video games, comic books, and musicians. Celebrate your inner 80s nerd and click on the link in the show notes below to get the raddest retro t-shirts delivered to your door. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Loot Crate. Founded in 2012, Loot Crate is the worldwide leader in fan subscription boxes. Loot Crate partners with industry leaders in entertainment, gaming, sports, and pop culture to deliver monthly themed crates, produce interactive experiences in digital content, and film original video productions. No matter what you geek out about, Loot Crate has a subscription box for you. To get your very own exclusive collectibles, apparel, and gear delivered to your door, be sure to click on the link in the show notes below. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is also brought to you by Vudu. Watch the latest movies and TV shows anytime, anywhere. No subscriptions, no contract. Enjoy stunning quality in up to 4K ultra high definition at home and download and watch on your mobile device as well. To rent and buy from over 100,000 titles or watch thousands of movies free with Vudu Movies on us, be sure to click on the link in the show notes below. Now, back to the show. Let's talk about Greg Schweers, who plays the night manager in the film. You know, I think the note that I wrote down in regards to his performance was just the right amount of the range was what I wrote down when it came to his performance. I mean, when it comes to him playing a character like that and you as a director, like making decisions on how you wanted to present on screen, how far did you want him to go in his character? Because he goes to places that really kind of stand out in this movie. I don't want to give away too much in regards to what his role is, but when it comes to performance himself, when trying to get just that right amount of the range, how do you work on that? Do you like to go really, really over the top and then bring it down and try to find a balance, kind of like a volume setting? And how does that work with that performance?
I'm glad that you say that, because that is the biggest takeaway that we're getting is that he's a lot of people's favorite character, and I'm glad to hear that. There's the occasional review where that, you know, it's like, oh, it's just, you know, so big, and I think that's all very much by design, and I think that most people can tell that by looking at the rest of the movie that he is overtly bad, and that's the style and tone and fun of it. And we wanted to have this kind of, and the twins even acknowledge it in the movie that he is this, you know, he walks into the scene on his first entrance and Spencer says, "Wow, you look exactly like I thought you would." I mean, he is so of this place. So it was, you know, for as broad and theatrical as the performance is, it's actually very measured. And there were times where I was, you know, coaxing more and more and more, because there's a, you know, we don't have to speak to it too much, but there's a desperation inside of this character. And I think that is the human element that drives all of his crazy behavior, is this deep, deep desperation. For what? You'll have to watch the movie. But I think that's very much a thing. And some of his bigger moments, like he said his favorite piece of direction that I gave him was Fire Breathing Dragon at one moment, when particularly in a tough spot. So he took that and he ran with it. And, you know, we have takes where he's ad-libbing. He tends to banter. He's ad-libbing for, you know, we have 4 or 5 minute takes where he's just going. And I think we'll put those on the Blu-ray and just call them, you know, Greg Schweers Unleashed or something. But that's something that we, you know, was part of the fun of it.
Well, something that's really important to this film, I think, is the sound of the film, the sound design in it. Especially like, you know, you turn the film up a little bit or you're watching it with headphones or what have you, you really pick up on these little kind of nuances in the background, because the house, not to give away too much, but the place itself, the hotel, is like this living, breathing kind of thing. And there's so much going on. And, you know, it's really hard not to go into spoil territory when I talk about this, but when it comes to sound design and how you want to execute that, I mean, how important is it to add those kind of little flourishes there to really kind of keep people on the edge and just keep people just settled just a little bit more, so it just keeps them on the edge of their seats when watching this movie?
I think sound is so important, and we're very lucky to have had longtime interim composer Guillaume Fuchs score and John Bowen sound design, and we all have a very tight working relationship. But it's so vitally important to any movie, I think, the sound, but especially in a horror movie. And you know, admittedly, there aren't a ton of jump scares in this movie. It's a lot of atmospheric dread and build and strange noises and things like that. But it's just really important for setting a stage and putting you psychologically in a place, as are silences within that too. So having dynamics where you can be really big and layered and then just kind of have it all sucked out and be in a vacuum again. So that was something that we worked with a lot too. And some of that was conceived and some of that was discovered, but it's definitely a big part of the process.
Screens are a big part of this movie as well, and every room, every hotel, of course, has a television set, and they really play a big role in this movie as well. When it comes to the visuals that are on the screen, do the actors know what they're looking at? I mean, there is moments in the movie where Amelia is kind of like narrating the action that's on the screens in these different hotel rooms. Did she know what she was looking at beforehand, or is it the first time she's reacting to those images?
It was the first time. We did a couple of takes on some of them, but the first time she saw them was when we were rolling. And that was by design and for the fun of it. And the narration that she does on some of them was actually a discovery we made in the moment. I said, as we were rolling, I said, tell us what's happening, narrate it, make a record of it for yourself. And she just took that and ran with it. And I think that added a sense of spontaneity to it, and as well as a narrative drive just to keep things moving, because we're not staring at the screen the whole time. So part of it's what's on the screen and part of it's her experience of it. And I think it was a really cool balance to be able to have both.
I think in horror movies, especially, there are certain films that certain classic movies that are always a looming shadow over anything else that's going to come after it. Like, for example, if you're going to make a shark movie, people are always going to bring up Jaws. If you're going to make a demonic possession movie, everyone's going to bring up The Exorcist. When it comes to a movie like Night at the Eagle Inn, I think comparisons are always going to be made to something like The Shining. And it's obvious as why, haunted hotel, etc. When it comes to something like that, like your characters even make mention to some of the characters of The Shining, especially in regards to Jack Torrance. Do you kind of like just embrace that? Do you know that comparisons are going to be made anyway, so you're just going to embrace those comparisons, or do you try to just push that aside and just concentrate on what you're doing?
Yeah, totally. I think that these movies are, I guess I'll start by saying, I'm not anti-trope as a rule. I think that tropes start to feel tired when they're not specific, and when you infuse them with specific character and situation and wants, then I think that they just become human archetypical themes, which is why we go to these movies. It's like, I've seen a haunted hotel movie before. It's like, well, does that mean you never want to see one again? I understand there are a ton of, knockoffs or things that feel kind of half-baked, but I am not against making certain kinds of movies that have existed before. And in fact, that was very much the goal here, because with 10 Minutes to Midnight, which is the last horror movie, it was much more cerebral and surreal, and we wanted to make something different this time, not better, not worse, but different, something that was more I could say in a sentence, twins go to a haunted hotel to investigate their father's disappearance. Cool, that sounds fun. So that was very much part of what we were trying to do here, is make it maybe just a little bit more easily digestible on first watch. And yeah, the characters do make reference to other movies. And I didn't want to go so far to the other extreme where it's actively subversive or we're winking at the audience like we're like The Shining. It's just that these characters are savvy, and we know what we're making, and we're making it on our own terms and in our own way. But I just like that these, for the most part, these characters make logical decisions and are aware of what's happening. They're not a hapless fodder just ready to be thrown to whatever scary thing happens to pop up. And I think that's how you keep it different, is just making the characters actual active participants in what's happening and not just set dressing.
I mentioned at the start of our interview that 2021 has been an incredibly busy year for you. And you have another movie coming out that you shot this year that's coming out next year called She Came from the Woods. Is that based on the shorts that you worked on a few years back?
So it's based on the original screenplay. So we went back. It's not a continuation of the short. It's not. Carson and I went back to the original screenplay that we wrote, the story, and we adapted that screenplay into a coming of age horror movie, is what we call it. It's the last day of the summer in the 1980s. Talk about tropes, but we do it again. We do it in our own. No, you'll see the movie. It's 1987, last day of summer camp. There's a family at the center that has run this camp for 42 years. The patriarch grandfather who opened the camp director, the mom, played by Bill Sadler and Cara Buono, and the son, played by Spencer List and Tyler Elliott Burke, and they're at the center of this microcosm of people, and there's this kind of wistfulness in the air for Last Day of Summer on the same day that they all conjure a long dead camp legend. So that is something that we shot in June, and we're looking at putting out next year, and we're super excited about that. It's fun, it's scary, and it's, I won't speak too much to it because I want people to kind of be surprised by it, but that was super fun.
Any idea in regards to 2022, were we going to be as busy as 2021, or was this year such an anomaly in regards to a lot of things that maybe next year won't be as prolific as this year was?
Say it one more time.
Any idea whether your 2022 will be as prolific as your 2021, or was this year so kind of such an anomaly in regards to a lot of things that you probably won't be as prolific as you were in these past several months?
Very kind of you to use the word prolific. We got very fortunate, I think, with people's availability to be such where we could make things as frequently as we did. But I think we all have a taste for it now. And I really love being able to tell stories frequently and not have to ask for permission. So I think that I'm hoping to have a consistent output. If not a feature every 2 months, then certainly a strong, consistent output. We're looking at doing something in Q1 and hopefully Q3 next year, and maybe something else in between all of that while these movies grow. But I just love telling stories, and I say this in a lot of interviews, but my favorite thing is to be surrounded by my friends and collaborators who are smart and savvy and professional, and to be able to tell stories and flex all our muscles together, because that's when I think we all feel most ourselves, and we can really only do that when we're creating together, just being grown-ups now. So both personally and professionally, I hope the answer to your question is yes.
Well, I got to say, I've been a fan of your work since we first spoke about Long Lost a couple of years ago, and I really do think that Night at the Eagle Inn is the best work you've done so far, and you know how much I loved 10 Minutes to Midnight and Long Lost. So for everyone out there listening, please check out Night at the Eagle Inn, available now on digital and video on demand. I highly recommend you check this film out if you're looking for a horror film with thrills and smarts and great performances. And Erik Bloomquist, I thank you so very much for your time today. And we got to talk again, man. When She Came from the Woods comes out, we got to get back on the horn and talk about that one, because I love talking about your films and watching them. And it's so great to be able to talk to you again. You're the first in the 3-time club on the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I had a bunch of 2-timers this year, and you're the first in the 3-time club. So I can't wait to make it number 4.
I appreciate it. Let's bring it to 4.
Absolutely. Erik, thank you so much for your time today.
Talk to you soon, Matt.
Erik, I do thank you so very much for that. And I meant what I said. I think this film is the best you've made so far. And yeah, man, it's such a great horror movie. As you can imagine, it gets so many horror films my way, especially with the October being Halloween season and all. And yours is definitely at the top of the movies I was watching the last month of all those horror releases. So it's so great to watch that film, and it's good to talk to you again, man. And you've been so busy and pumping out good work, and it's really cool to see. Because I know a lot of people probably have been struggling over the last year or so to get some films. So that you're able to work the way you've been able to work and keep yourself busy. That's a really cool thing, man.
Awesome. I really appreciate it, Matt. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content. Also, if you would like to request a review and support my work, please join my Patreon via the link in the description below.